Hello folks, welcome to the Ferret and Gibbon podcast. I hope you've all had a lovely festive season. It's not quite over yet, there's still New Year's to come. I've had a lovely time. I've done practically nothing but knit, which has been absolutely wonderful and outstanding for me. We didn't visit family for the Christmas holidays itself this year. We've had some people come over to visit us in Twixtmas, and we're off to visit some people for New Year's Eve, but on the whole it's been a very low-key, relaxed affair, which has been really rather lovely and has enabled me to get a few projects finished, which has been wonderful. I think I finished more projects in the last month than I have in the past 6 months, so it's been very satisfying to make some headway and to get my knitting mojo back, and so I'll be sharing some of those things with you as we go through today. Very briefly, before we get started on the current projects, just wanted to show you this shawl that I'm wearing very briefly. This is an old project. This was made, I really need to get this right now, 2013, so that's 5.5 years ago now. And this is the shawl that I made for when Neil and I got married, to go with my outfit from there. At the time it was the most complicated project I'd done to date, sort of with this lacework pattern, and I was really pleased with it. I had to cast it on, I think, about 6 times. The number of times I unfrogged it because I got horribly confused with the patterning and what I was doing, but I got there in the end, and it's now a staple part of my wardrobe on a day-to-day basis, which makes me very happy. It is the, one moment, Birch leaf shawl, so that's the bottom up shawl by Susan Gutpearl. I will add links below. And I knit this with a set of gradient skeins, which I think I got from Pearlescence at the time. And it grades from a purple into a grey. It was one of those things that I saw the yarn actually way before I think we'd even planned a date for the wedding, but I knew as soon as I saw it that was what that project was going to be, and I tried casting on a couple of different types of shawl with it first, before settling on this one, which I then had to cast on a number of times and rip back a few times. But yeah, really pleased that I settled on this pattern. I'm very pleased with it. It's a lovely big shawl, fantastic for keeping you cosy and warm whilst being really lovely and light. On to more recent projects. Last time we chatted, I was working on the night at the ballet mittens, which I've now finished, both of. I just pop these on and give you and show you. I am really pleased with these, but I'm not quite 100% with them. So the pattern is no fault of the pattern whatsoever. I think the pattern's lovely and it's come together really nicely. You can hopefully see the little triangle patterns on the front, and there's the little cabled patterns on the side, and the yarn's great. It's just, I didn't do a swatch of my tensions out, so they're a bit baggier at the top than I would like them to be, and they're just a little bit looser than I would actually feel comfortable with. So happy with the knit, not happy with me. I will still wear these. They're definitely going into rotation. They will be used and worn, but I will probably be wearing them with longer sleeves so that I can just pad out my arms underneath them a little bit, if that makes sense. And I will then probably make myself something a little bit more grippy going forward. I need to remember, I always fail to remember that I've got quite a loose gauge when I'm knitting, and that things do tend to come up slightly larger than planned, which means I need to buy extra yarn when I'm making blanket shawls, things like that, and if I don't adjust for the sizing. And for things like this, I just need to be conscious that they won't always fit the way I intend them to. So, as I said, no problems with the pattern at all. I was really pleased with it. It was a really enjoyable thing to knit. I think I hadn't picked up the thumbs on either of them when I last showed you, so the thumbs are in there, and it was, I really enjoyed it as a knit. It's just not quite the perfect fit for me, but they are good enough that I will definitely still be wearing them, but I will be casting on something else, I think, soonish, with a little bit more grip. I want them to hug my arms a little bit more. So that's something I'll be working on coming soon. The other thing that I have been working on, and I've cast this on, I cast this on once I finished the mitts. So you won't have seen this at all yet, and that is I'm trying to get this the right way around, the Paris in Berlin cowl. This was inspired by Grace over at Babel's Travelling Yarn podcast, who made one of these in actually quite a similar yarn. It was, again, quite a light, very colourful yarn that she was using, which was what inspired me to dig this one out, which was, so this is a skein of Countess Ablaze, the Tia Merino yarn, and I can't remember the colourway, one moment, the This Ain't a Scene colourway. This is delightful yarn. It is the squishiest. Let me pop it on so you can see how it looks. I made the same modification actually that Grace made in her version, which is let me pop it on. The pattern itself has a load of pearl bumps on this part of the pattern, but because it's such a busy yarn, I did what Grace did and I just left those pearl bumps out. Actually, I started doing them at the very beginning and realised that I couldn't see what pearl bumps I'd done and what I hadn't because the yarn was so busy, so I just stopped doing them. So there's a couple of rows with them in, and then I didn't bother for the rest. So thank you, Grace, for the inspiration for this, for the pattern, for the yarn. One thing that I probably do, let me tip this forward so you can see it a little bit better. I think again, this is all about me learning. I think I didn't do a stretchy enough bind off on the edge when I cast off. So it doesn't fan out quite in the same way that Grace's does. Doesn't bother me particularly for this one. I'm still really, really happy with this. But I am tempted to make another one because it was a real delight to make. It's a great way of showing off the detail on a single skein. If I can bring this a bit closer, you can see some of the patterning on the pattern and the colours. Yeah, it's a really delightful project, really. So I'm really happy with it as a project. I will definitely make another one at some point when I have another lovely one-off skein of fingering weight yarn that needs to be used up. And when I do, I will do a slightly looser cast off. There's definitely a stretchier cast off to get the most out of it. But again, lovely and soft, wonderful. Could definitely be used to keep your ears warm if needed. But yeah, really pleased with that. So that's 2 projects finished, which I'm super excited by at the moment. Project 3, that is the next one that I cast on almost as soon as I cast off the Paris and Berlin shawl. I'm being almost quite dedicated and monogamous in my knitting at the moment. It won't last. But this project is hidden in my new project bag, which was the one that I mentioned in a previous project, in a previous podcast, that Neil had bought for me when I was told to go and take a walk so that he could buy me a Christmas treat. And this is I Love Me a Little Bee bag. It's by Natalie Bain, who sells quite a lot of things at sort of stalls in the local area. Again, I will share links below. But hidden in this is a yarn mess already. But this is my stripe study shawl that I'm working on. Excuse the yarn bath. Yeah, so this is the stripe study shawl, and I'm using the Blackberry Picking mini skein set from the Fibre Fox that I showed in a previous episode, along with the grey that's left over from the yellow and grey shawl that I also showed in a previous episode. So using up a few things that were lying around. So the stripe study shawl, I'm really struggling to say in one go, is by Vera Välimäki. Again, links below. This is a really satisfying knit, actually. It's growing out really nicely. It's showing off the colours, I think, beautifully. It's going to be a sort of a triangular-ish shawl. It's going to be longer on one side than on the other. It's a relatively simple pattern, so that once you've got into the habit of it, I'm not having to keep referring back to the printed pattern. I'm not having to keep sort of a real close eye on which row I'm at. I can follow it through, which makes actually knitting it is much faster, because I don't have to keep putting my knitting down to pick up a pen to mark off where I'm in the pattern. So that's really satisfying. I've definitely made a couple of mistakes. I'm not even sure what I've done. There is a massive hole in the project for some reason, some kind of drop stitch thing going on. I've got no idea how I've managed that. I haven't sent in any of the ends yet. There's going to be tons of them, and I'm sure I've got the number of backwards and forwards is slightly out of sync at some point, but doesn't matter. It's going to look beautiful when it's done. The stripes, so at the moment I'm doing one stripe per colour per skein that I've got. So, but as the stripes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I don't think the skeins are going to be, at the end of the mini skein set, are going to be quite big enough to cover the whole stripe. So once I get to that stage, I might do a little bit of replanning and work out whether I do a big chunk of grey or some smaller stripes in the middle. I might have to adjust it slightly as I go, but generally really lovely. The Fibre Fox mini skein set, absolutely delightful to work with. They're such pretty colours. I'm trying to keep track of the weights of how much yarn is going into each stripe, so I'll put that in my Ravelry project notes if anyone else is interested in doing a striped version like this. I've seen on Ravelry lots of people have sort of used gradient yarns to get the stripes, different colours in their projects, or just using two colours. But I'm really enjoying doing it this way, and so we'll see what it comes out like at the end when I start to get to bigger and bigger chunks, and whether I can actually see things through with the mini skeins themselves. But hopefully you'll see that one in the new year. So again, love this bag. It was being shown advertised as a wash bag, again a makeup bag I think in this instance, but it is the absolute perfect size for this project. So, and look at that little bee, it's so cute. I'm a big fan of bees. Because we are now at the gone past Christmas, my advent calendar opening has finished. As I've mentioned before, Neil and I make each other an advent calendar each year. Well, I sewed up some advent calendars a couple of years ago, which are a series of pockets, and then each year we put things in the pockets. So this year in my advent calendar from Neil, I had a mixture of mini skeins and a cardboard assembly puzzle thing to make a 3D tower bridge, which was great fun and is now sitting on a bookshelf. But there were some really beautiful mini skeins that he gave me, and I've shown you some already, but there's a few more that have popped up since, which I just wanted to share. So there's these lovely ones again with a little bit of sparkle in them. There are some really sort of beautiful rainbowy type ones. Again, they're mostly the little 5-gram mini skeins. There's a couple that are slightly larger, sort of 10-gram skeins. Just really beautiful. Again, another one with a little bit of shimmer in that one. They're all from the same company, which I've mentioned before, which is Stardust Home Crafts. They're really lovely. I haven't started knitting with any of them yet, but I'm really looking forward to doing that, and I'll let you know what they're like as they go along. But yes, a lovely little selection of different mini skeins. As to what I'm actually going to do with all the mini skeins, I've mentioned it before, but I am working on a Beekeepers Quilt. So this is one of those projects that a few years ago everybody was talking about. I haven't seen as many people talking about it recently, but it's one of those projects that takes a long time to make. So I'm sure hundreds and hundreds of people are still busily squirreling away and making this in the background. So the Beekeepers Quilt is made up of lots of little hexie puffs, which I'm knitting out of all sorts of loads of little fingering weight mini skeins, and they are knit in the round, and then you stuff them with toy stuffing and seam it together, and then at the end you sew them together. And I have got so far a little bag of these beautiful little hexie puffs with some wild and wonderful colours in them. Some from when I first started that are slightly different sizes, so may need to go more towards the edges. A lot of these are just mini skeins that I've picked up, which I think are really beautiful. Some of them are mini skeins from my advent calendar last year, which was a Vicky Brown Designs advent calendar. Some of them, like this one, is leftovers from other projects. So I made a worm hat out of this, and that's a little bit left over from that. This one is some leftover from a shawl I made for a friend's wedding. So there's, yeah, various little sort of memory bits in there as well as just some really beautiful mini skeins. I am going to be working on this for many years to come. I have got, however, lots of mini skeins to keep me going and working from. So there's in here, so some of the ones that I've had from Christmas this year. There's some that I've just dropped on the floor. They've got some lovely the Moffy and the Squid mini skeins in here. There are some naturally dyed mini skeins that I got from a craft swap that I took part in a little while ago. There are, what else is in here? Just lots of really beautiful colours. So quite a lot of these are actually from last year's advent calendar. I did knit up quite a lot of them, but not all of them. Just so many beautiful colours, and I'm really excited to keep working on all these Hexie Puffs with all their beautiful colouring in them. And one day I will have the Beekeepers Quilt. It will probably be a couple of years still to come, but they're really fun projects to pick up and work on as and when you feel like working on something nice, and you get that lovely satisfaction of finishing things, because each Hexie Puff, there is the satisfaction of finishing each and every single Hexie Puff, that's really great too. Some other projects that I've got kind of on the go that I want to show you, they're sort of a little bit in hibernation at the moment, but they are to be finished. This is the Chandelic Shawl by Erin Curup. And this is being knit with this lovely black and red yarn, which was a custom dye order for me from Lorna Jane Makes, who made the gorgeous grey wagtail colourway that I made my grey and yellow shawl out of that I showed previously. I keep calling it that grey and yellow shawl, but I should probably call it by its name, the All About That Brioche shawl. But yeah, so this is by Lorna Jane Makes, who made the grey and yellow skein, which was the grey wagtail colourway that I made half of that shawl out of. This was a custom dye that she did for me, which is half black, half red, which is my drumming troops colours. And so I'm working on this for drumming, which, as I said, is the Chandelic Shawl. Did I get that right? Yes, the Chandelic Shawl. So this is on a little bit of a hiatus at the moment because drumming is on hiatus until March-ish. So there's not a huge rush to get this done, but I think this will be really lovely. And it's also got on it a little progress keeper, which of a little cat, which I also got from Lorna Jane when I ordered the yarn. So just work in progress, slightly hiatus, but turns out I'm also really bad at counting, so it's not the most perfectly even. There's already a couple of flaws in the lace patterning of it. I'm sure it'll all even out in the wash. As I've said before, I'm not that precious. I would rather learn from my mistakes, carry on and finish projects, than spend ages trying to unpick them and then get bored of a project and never get it finished. So, one in progress. And then the other project that I have in progress is, so this one's got a little bit of backstory. So I went to the Knitting and Stitching show at Ali Pali. It wasn't this year, year before, possibly even the year before that. And on the Stylecraft stall, I saw this poncho on the show on a mannequin, which I just fell for it and ignored it for a little while, and then kept looking at it on the website and eventually caved and bought the yarn for it. So I've made this massive poncho, which has got some lovely cabling in it. So it's Stylecraft yarn, so it's not massively expensive, but it is warm and snuggly. I just wanted something that I could wear on long train journeys, particularly in winter. I spend a lot of time on the train in the morning with heating that never works. I hate wearing coats, so I just wanted something that I could really just curl up into and keep warm. So this was perfect. And it's again one of those ones that I started and then I got distracted and read a book rather than doing any knitting, and it took a little while. Took a little while for me to finish it, and then as I was starting to get to the end, I was starting to get nervous about playing Yarn Chicken. So I just popped onto the website where I'd ordered the yarn originally from, which I think was Wool Warehouse, and went to order just one extra ball of yarn just to make doubly sure I could definitely finish, and then saw that they were discontinuing that colourway, so I bought out, I think I bought everything that they had, which is obviously now way more than I needed, but I got that panicky feeling of, but what if I can't finish this? So for a start, I made it a little bit longer, so it's properly blanket-like when I'm wearing it on the train, which is excellent, but it does mean that I've got quite a lot of that yarn left over. So in my trusty bag here, I'm making a baby blanket, which is just sort of a checkerboardy knit pearl checkerboard pattern, which is about yay wide. I'm just going to keep going until I get bored or run out of yarn. I probably won't run out of yarn, there's enough there. But yeah, just to make a little baby blanket for someone. I don't have anyone particular in mind for it yet, but it's never a bad thing to have a baby blanket kicking around, especially one, essentially it's Stylecraft yarn. So let me get that one with a ball band on. It's the Stylecraft Carnival Chunky. This was in the Venice colourway. It is 100% premium acrylic. So it's perfect for babies. You can, sling it in the wash and they can throw up all over it and it'll all be fine in the end. But it is really soft. It is lovely. I do really like the colours on this. And yeah, the poncho is fantastic. I've had quite a few comments about it when I've been out and about. Excuse me, sorry. I got ill as soon as the Christmas holiday started, typically. I've been coughing all the time, which is lovely. But yeah, I've had quite a few comments about the poncho, which has been really lovely. It was, so prior to making the Iona dress, it was the biggest garment that I had made. If you can call a poncho a garment, I mean, it's got a neck. It has no other shaping. I mean, the cables are lovely. It works really well. It does exactly what I wanted it to do, but it's not a proper garment. So, but yeah. So again, that's something. So the blanket there, the checkerboard blanket, is just something that I just pick up occasionally, and do a few extra rows on. It is. I think it was inspired by a pattern, but I'm not really following a pattern. Well, I'm definitely not following a pattern. It very likely was inspired by a pattern initially, just for sizing and cast on. But wherever I got that inspiration from, I have not kept any notes of that, I'm afraid. But it's just stockinette stitch, border, alternating knit purl in chunks for a few rows, then flip it round for another few rows, so you get sort of a raised knit purl checkerboard. It's really simple, so it doesn't need a pattern. But yeah, it's quite a nice thing just to pick up occasionally, and yeah, that would be nice to get that one finished at some point. And in fact, what I should do is transfer it out of the crappy bag that it's sitting in at the moment into the other project bag that Neil got me for Christmas, which is a massive sheepy bag, which is very cute. So this is by, it says it in here somewhere, and I have forgotten entirely who it is. There's a little box of notions in here, which I know has the name written on it. Here we go. Rachel Green Crafts. So it came with this little pot with a couple of stitch markers and a progress keeper. But yeah, it's a really good sized project bag. Decent sized handles. I like things with longer handles. And then inside it's got nothing in it at the moment, but it's got a little pouch in the middle, a zip pouch in the middle with bits. It's got some little pockets on the sides to put bits in, and it's got, what I really like, it's got little clips on either side that you can run your yarn through if you're doing colour work to try and stop the yarn getting tangled. So it's got those on both sides, there and there, which is great. So really good sized project bag, that one. Definitely big enough for a sweater. Probably big enough for that blanket that I'm working on at the moment. Speaking of sweaters, I said in the last episode that I was going to definitely cast on a sweater by spring. I stand by that. I will cast on a sweater by spring. I've been thinking about which one it is that I am going to cast on, and at the moment I am currently torn. And thank you so much everyone for your comments and suggestions on sweaters. There was some love for a boxy sweater, but I feel like, given that I'm already of a larger frame, making a really oversized jumper, I will still be knitting it come the apocalypse. So as tempting as it is, I might leave that one until I'm a little bit faster knitter, get myself a bit more practice in first. The other suggestion that I had was for, not rather than a specific jumper, for a designer, because I said I wanted something that I could wear over dresses, and that designer is Andy Satterlund. And I'm really tempted by the Crumb Cardigan, which I'll just share a little photo of here. And at the moment, I'll see if I can get this up really quickly, this video, but at the moment she's offering the pattern for that cardigan as a freebie if you join her newsletter by the 1st of January. So you still have time to get a free pattern, hopefully, if I'm really quick at getting this uploaded. It's only about £5, I think, to actually buy the pattern. But it's a cute little cardigan. I realise it's a cardigan rather than a sweater, but it's a garment. That's the important bit. And I think that would work really nicely with the kind of dresses that I frequently wear. So, and also just because it is a shorter garment, I'm hoping that it will require less yarn, therefore easier to purchase the yarn for and find out some yarn that I actually really want to make it with, and B means it'll be something that I'll get finished sooner, so then hopefully I'll get the bug for knitting garments rather than the other one that I was considering. Well, there's a couple that I was considering. One is the Fern and Feather sweater, which obviously loads of people have been making, and I really love it. I especially love the neckline on it. There's sort of the slightly wider rolled neckline. I really like how that looks. But again, there's quite a lot of, I just feel like for my first project, that's maybe a little bit, and I've never done, that's not true, I have done one colourwork project, which I need to find and finish off at some point. But I've certainly not done doing a sweater and colourwork at the same time. I know it's relatively simple colourwork, but it's definitely on the queue, but I'm probably not going to do that one as my first. Yeah, now I just need to decide what yarn I'm going to make it out of. Oh, yarn shopping. It's so difficult to decide between all the beautiful things. I'm sure I'll figure out, but I'm thinking maybe like a dark green tealy type colour. We'll see. But yes, I will make a decision on that soon. I will cast it on, and I will make some good progress by spring. I'm not guaranteeing finishing it by spring, but I will have cast it on by spring. I will have made some progress by spring. That's what I'm holding myself to. If I could do like really big knitting aims for the year, I think it would probably be to make 4 garments this coming year, like one for each season. But I am also very aware that while I've had a big knitting enthusiasm the last couple of days, well, last week while I've been on holiday, I've done practically nothing but knit. Life gets in the way, and I don't always have as much knitting time. So 4 garments, maybe, but I'm not going to hold myself to it. I will hold myself to having cast on a garment by spring. And then the final thing, so thank you very much everyone for coming along again. I really appreciate that you're all watching and commenting and providing feedback, and definitely your pattern suggestions are really, really appreciated. I had a request in the comments for a little bit more information about how I made the pyjamas that I mentioned in episode 1 or episode 2. I didn't follow a pattern for them. I would share a pattern, but there isn't one. Literally what I did was I laid out some fabric doubled up on my table. I took an old pair of pyjama trousers and cut round them and cut that out twice and sewed some bits together. I feel like there must have been at some point a Pinterest post of some description that gave me some indications of how to actually get that started. So I'll see if I can find the links to those, and I'll share that with you as well if someone else is interested in doing that. But there was no actual pattern to work from. It was more a set of guidelines, instructions, handy hints. But the pyjamas were worn on Christmas Day. They were lovely and cozy. Big fan of those, so that was great. And I have bought some more fabric. I will definitely be making myself another pair of pyjamas at some point. And if I do, I'll take some photos and share with you the process of how that works. But they're probably best viewed from a distance, in all honesty. I'm not the best at sewing. I can sew. I can make the sewing machine work. Mostly it's patterns. No. But yeah, I will dig out some links and I'll share those with you below. The last thing that then I just wanted to share with you, and I will say goodbye before I do. Last episode, I just stopped saying last thing because there's always then one more thing that I think of. So before I get to the last things that I want to share with you, I just wanted to have just mention briefly that the last couple of episodes have been sort of vaguely weekly. I really can't guarantee how regularly I will be doing these episodes going forward. I've got a full-time job in London. I live down on the south coast. I do a lot of commuting. I have various things that happen in various evenings at various times of year that mean that guaranteeing when I can actually record these is a little bit limited. I try to work from home on a Wednesday, and if I can do that, then Wednesday evenings is a really good time for me to record podcasts, but meetings and stuff invariably happen, and that opportunity to work from home gets lost and moved around. And so I will try my best to do these as regularly as possible, but don't expect them to come out at the same time or the same intervals each time. It will vary. But please do subscribe, and then if you want to find out what's happening, it will pop up. That's how the subscribe buttons work. I really shouldn't need to explain how subscribe buttons work to you. You've all found me on YouTube. You know how YouTube works. You know how life works. It's all fine. Then the very last thing, I will say goodbye now, and thank you very much for listening. And last episode, I mentioned that I had been to a poetry night where a friend of mine had been performing. I've spoken to my friend. She has given me permission to share the poem that she performed on the night at the end of this podcast. So I will say goodbye now, and then I will add Rachel's performance from the Rhymes with Orange poetry night, and I'll leave that at the end to fade out the video. Thank you very much, everyone, and I will see you hopefully again soon.
2 years ago at Christmas Rhymes, I did a poem for my mum that was called Rude Health because she had breast cancer, and I wished that she was well, and she is well. Yay! And last year it was all going really well, so I stood up here because the theme was wishes, and I said I'm going to do the poem that I did last year because it was my wish and it came true, and I stood here and did it again with my baby in my belly. I was really thrilled about that. And today it's family, and I was like, right, okay, what can I do? I'm going to have to, follow on this theme. So you've got a bit of context about my mum and dad. They've gone through all this. There's a baby now. I really enjoy taking the piss out of them because they humiliated me like my whole life, and that's revenge. So a little bit about them is my dad is like sort of the Earth, South London, kept growing, big bloke, working class hero, right, fine. My mum is from the west of Ireland. So you wouldn't have put them together in like a million years, and like no one did. They just randomly found each other, and yeah, and I'm the result. And so is my brother, and we're like, surprisingly normal-ish. Anyway, it's a little bit of context for you about them because yeah, I do impressions of them, and that's what I'm going to do for this. So this poem is called Things My Parents Have Said to Me About My Infant Daughter. All true. On being been told that, depending on how things went with the birth, they could visit me either on Friday afternoon or Saturday. We can't come Saturday. Saturday's Grand National. Fucking granddaughter. Okay. They came on Friday, it was all fine. My mum, being handed her granddaughter for the first time, she said, "She's a doll. She's a gift." And then she looked down in her face and she went, "How could anyone hurt a child?" How could anyone hurt a child? I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I was feeling quite delicate myself. Quite a still couldn't stand or go for a wee, and I did. And I was like, why did you say that, Mum? She's like, she's so beautiful, she's so vulnerable. I don't know why Irish people have like many different syllables, but they do. Vulnerable. And you just think about these people. How could, I was like, yeah, how could, yeah. Okay, stop now. So that was an interesting welcome to the world for my daughter, whose name's Orla. Anyway, she's a doll, she's a gift. My mum often repeats that she's a doll and she's a gift. On breastfeeding. You could have put that away. No, you should do. Give her a rusk. This is like she was 7 days old. Give her a rusk. Like a biscuit. Mix it up with some water and feed it to her with a spoon. I was like, she's 7 days old, she doesn't have any teeth. Right. Okay. Do you know what she is? No, go on, Mum. She's a doll. She's a gift. On our flat. Jesus, be careful on the stairs! You're going to fall down those stairs and die. You'll be carrying the baby and you'll drop her and she'll die. On using the baby Bjorn for the first time. She's going to fall out of that and die. On our cat. Cat's going to kill her. She's a doll. She's a gift. How could anyone... Not now, Mum. So there's all that, and there's many more stories, but no one really tells you about the joy. That those babies' wonder and awe is contagious. That you hear about the lack of sleep, yeah, that's real. But for me, watching this baby arrive and heal our family is wonderful. We don't take it for granted, but we pause long enough to laugh. Long enough to edge away from shadowy years and fears. Long enough to dare to take our hearts out of our mouths and wear them on our sleeves, where they shine brightly from the light of this doll, this gift. Thanks.